Welcome to the Caddo Convos, the podcast that explores the vibrant community of businesses thriving in Caddo Office Reimagined. We're here to shine a light on the incredible entrepreneurs and professionals who make the most of our private offices, co-working spaces, and day office rentals in the Dallas-Fort Worth suburbs. Join us as we share their stories, celebrate their successes, and dive into the benefits of working in a space that's close to home but offers so much more than working from home. Let's get started with today's conversation. Joining me today is Bryan Roberts with BR Public Adjuster, and he's joining us on Caddo Convos from the Prosper podcast location. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for having me.
Let's jump right in and talk about your business. What do you do and how do you serve your customers?
Sure. So I'm a public adjuster. So the best way I figured out to describe it, because when I started, my mom, she's like, what are you doing? So the best way to figure it out is that, insurance company has their guy they send out when you file a claim. I am the property owner's guy. So I'm just more or less there to hold the insurance company accountable for the policy that they sold you. So it's kind of a weird concept that, you're in an agreement with somebody else, but they're the only ones that get to determine how that agreement is processed. So I'm there just to make sure they're doing what they sold you.
Right. You're the public side.
Yes.
Not the business side. You're the public.
Correct.
Yep. How did you get in this line of work?
Long version or short version?
The middle. What's the middle?
The middle. So, at the time I was a high school football and baseball coach and switched to golf, and my summers were open. And so my one of my neighbors was working for a roofing company. Figured out I didn't like door-to-door sales very much, but I liked the industry. And so then I switched to be an insurance adjuster. Did that for a couple of years. Saw enough of how that was working. And I was like, that's not...
Not working?
Yeah, that's not how it's supposed to go. It just didn't, I enjoy sleeping at night and couldn't always do that. And so, met a couple of guys that were already kind of doing it. I was like, I didn't even know that was a career path. And so kind of hopped back on the consumer side and pretty much kind of went from there. And so, I think I started back up in... Great timing. The second week in March of 2020.
Oh, yeah. Great time to get into business.
Yeah. I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to do this for myself. And then...
Let's roll the dice.
Poof. Nope. Not doing anything. And so, I've been doing it just pretty much by myself for the last 4 years. Slowly kind of added some people, stuff like that. But it's trying to stay relatively small to where if, you call, you're not a... number. It's not, file number 238. It's, Brody, and that's, keeps it simple.
Gotcha.
And so
people who don't know that your role exists,
mm-hmm.
how do you educate people to say, I'm here and I'm not a chiropractor?
Yeah.
Yeah. Imagine you get some calls through, are you a chiropractor?
Yeah.
You might be able to bounce business back and forth between a group of chiropractors.
I should.
Just from an ignorant public.
Yeah. So a lot of it, the majority of my customers come from contractors. So when they, if a storm happens, they, knock on everybody's door and then, they file a claim. Insurance tells them no. And then they say, well, hey, call Bryan, or they'll send me homeowners information. I call them, and we kind of get it figured out. And so there's not a whole lot of marketing that is done for it. Really, it's kind of like word of mouth is pretty much how I go. And I actually had this brought up a couple of times to people like, hey, do you have a business card or a website, something like that? And it's like, no, if you try to find me online. This actually might be the only online exposure right. I have at the moment.
Yeah,
just
find me on the podcast.
Yeah,
everything you need to know.
Yeah, and so it's it's one of those weird things that since we started, it's like just been straight word of mouth. I get guys that call like, oh yeah, hey, got your number from Lewis. Help me. Like, yeah, I'll help you. Like, I don't know who Lewis is. Like I'm not sure who that guy is, but I'm glad to give you my number.
Yeah.
And so it's been kind of nice to be able to kind of grow organically like that and not have so much coming in that I just can't support it. So try to keep it to a manageable level to where working with good contractors that are going to do the things that I'm helping them get approved. Because the last thing we want to do is get all this stuff approved, and then the contractor comes back and like, well, maybe we won't do that, but we'll just keep the money for it. And so that's why I always kind of tell them, like, hey, if something gets approved, you better do it, because otherwise, my name is on that estimate, not yours. Right. And so, so it kind of works out well. They scratch my back, I scratch theirs. And so,
take care of it. Yeah. So as a homeowner, talk me, because it's still a mystery.
Yeah.
It's like you're working magic over there.
Yeah.
So let's say what's a normal claim, like especially in this area, maybe hail damage.
Yeah.
Is that a good one?
Yeah. So I guess I live in Light Farms, so we got hit earlier this spring, and so typically, if you don't have anybody, you're just like, well, I know I have some damage,
yeah.
And so hey, I file my claim. Insurance comes out, they'll tell me something. If everybody around you is getting their roof replaced, but your insurance said no, it's like, well, then maybe we need to dig a little bit further. So if insurance company told them no, they'd either call me or another public adjuster. We'd go out, kind of do our assessment, and the only way that I get paid is if the homeowner gets paid. So if I always tell people, if there's nothing there, I will be the first one to tell you, because nobody likes working for free, and if I know it's a kind of a lost cause, then well, hey, let's just
the truth.
Let's just move on.
Yep.
Your insurance company was actually right. But for the most part, especially here in Prosper, that hasn't really been the case. So a lot of it is, not to say badmouth insurance, but like they have probably the best
mixed results,
the best business model I've ever heard of. It's a product you have to have that they hope you don't use.
Right.
Actually, almost make you feel bad for using their product. And it's like I wish I could think of something that's like insurance that, but
you have to sleep.
Sleeping at night.
Yeah,
the
sleeping at night thing.
Haven't figured it out yet, but when I do, we'll be going.
Yeah,
But
give me a call.
Yeah,
let's get it.
Yeah, for sure. And
it's
so
a side hustle we can take care of.
Yeah,
you've mentioned Prosper several times. You're a resident here in Prosper, and imagine you serve the surrounding area. What's your area?
Mostly, DFW. I do have a few, contractors out in Lubbock, a couple down in Houston, some in Austin. But for the most part, try to stay as close to home as possible.
Driving distance for you.
Yeah, because otherwise, I'd just be all over the place. And part of with the transition from the insurance side to this side is just being able to be at home. Because when I was doing that part of it, the closest I ever came to working close to home was like Waukene, Kansas. So like nowhere close as in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, Florida, and it's just like I've just gone too much, missing too much stuff at home. And so try to stay in and around here, because obviously there's plenty of stuff going on here as far as just weather. And that's one of those things that's somewhat recession proof, just because
hate to say it, this area is kind of the hail capital of Texas, as far as I'm concerned. Maybe the world.
I think it's probably the world.
Yeah.
I mean, because
really don't want to claim that title, but I think it's
very. I don't know if it's the name you want to have or the title you want to have, but it is kind of what we are. And so, there's, I think last I looked, there's roughly 26,000 roofing companies in DFW. So, it's like there can't be that many roofs, but there's always
every third home is a roofing company.
Yeah, basically. So some of them are like a really big, professional operations. Some are, kind of the I don't want to say mom and pop, just the pop shop. And so, so try to find good ones that have something established to where they're not going to take the money and run. Yeah. And so,
And for the purposes of our listeners, there are several, and we're going to transition to Caddo next. Obviously, you talked about close to home, but there are several podcasts you'll see in the series that are local roofing companies.
Yeah,
and they're pretty amazing. So look for those. But you mentioned close to home. Love working close to home. Mm-hmm. You chose Caddo, the Caddo Office Reimagined here in Prosper. Tell me why. Other than, obviously,
it's 5 miles from the house. For me, I have 4 kids, and so summers are busy, and there's no way to get anything done. So the way my works, it takes me like 5 to 10 minutes to get somewhat focused on something. Then a kid comes in, hey, I need milk, or hey, wipe my bottom, something like that.
And
so then that's every 30 minutes. So then I'm basically on an 8-hour workday, I'm getting like 3 hours done. So this kind of gives me the ability to like, hey, drop kids off at school, come up here, get all my stuff done in a quiet atmosphere, and just be able to get done what I need to get done, and then go back home. And then, again, it's not having to do the 30, 40-minute commute to a central location. It's right down the street, but still, far enough away to where it's not just able to hop back in and stuff like that. And so, but yeah, so that's.
So talk to me about the best way. You mentioned from a networking standpoint. Let's say, again, I'm a homeowner, and is this something I should ask my contractor for and say, hey, can you supply me with a public adjuster or something?
Yeah, most
of those questions we don't know to ask. Yeah. We just know that we just got hit with a storm.
Yeah, hit with a storm. The contract. Most of them are somewhat well versed in like, hey, these are what needs to happen if you get told no. And so, well, I say most. Hopefully, most of them know. But really, this I guess profession's only been around for 10, 15 years, so it's still relatively new. Because again, the good old days of insurance claims, the guys like, well, you got $20,000 worth of damage. Your deductible's $500. Here's your money. Yep. Go figure it out. And so they've kind of slowly, somewhat slowly, just kind of figured out how to nickel and dime it. Well, hey, I'm still paying for everything, but as little as possible. And so, the more of the kind of insurance gurus type stuff has started to slowly kind of creep into it to where, hey, we know you're nickel and diming. How can we try to get some of that back? So a lot of the contractors are a little bit more familiar with how this stuff works when you get told no, and which carriers are always doing the same thing. And so some of that is, my job is just kind of educating contractors on, hey, this is what this particular insurance company, these are their requirements now. It wasn't that way 2 weeks ago, but they're going to try this and see how many times they get sued. And if they don't, then they're going to keep doing it. Right. And so it's always weird because it's not like hail changes or not like, roofs really change, but somehow the way that damage is assessed seems to always be changing. And
that's happened recently. I mean, like you mentioned, basically what you do is new, relatively speaking, because the industry has changed over time. Would you I imagine there's major pieces of legislation that are coming out all the time that regulate or deregulate?
Yeah.
What would you say was the biggest pivot that you've noticed? Because again, I'm a homeowner, so I've noticed a change. I'd say in the past few years. I'm not sure when it flipped over, but I know that there was a time. I'd say 10, 12 years ago, we had our roof replaced, and it seemed to be an easier process. And since then, that's changed. What do you know? What changed or when it changed?
Probably I'd say the most recent kind of famous law was like House Bill 2102. It's just
that's federal.
It's So it's a state one.
Oh,
state. So Texas. They
interesting.
It's weird how they phrased it. So the main part of that is. There's two main parts. One is that requires homeowners to pay their deductible. The other part is that it does not allow contractors to negotiate the claim. So it kind of forces them to come to my side to where I have the license. I can negotiate it. Contractors, they can talk about like scope of work and all that kind of stuff. They can't just say, hey, I think this is $20,000. Well, hey, I think it's $15,000. Well, let's just meet in the middle. Contractors legally not supposed to be able to do that. So that's when they do kind of to kick it to my side of it. Now they can talk about, well, hey, they can figure out ways to get to that 20 number, but they can't specifically say that, hey, I think this is 20, you need to pay me 20. They can't do that. And so with that bill, I think it passed 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, I was going to say, it seems somewhat recent in some of our interactions.
Yeah, so that's when they passed that. They framed it as a way to get rid of crummy roofers and that kind of stuff, but really it was a way to reduce the number of claims being filed because people think like, well, hey, if I have a 1% deductible, my house is $400,000. Like I don't want to spend $4,000 on anything, especially just to get things back to the way they were. So that's kind of part of that ploy to where it's just trying to make it harder to use their product. And so, but again, they're great at it. Like they had, I think. I think Allstate had a guy come in and tell them a couple of years ago that, hey, if you switch your font on what you mail out from like 13 down to 11, you'll save $2.5 million a year just on ink and paper. And so they just kind of figured out ways to keep, whittling away at things while, hey, we're still legally covering it, but, as little as possible.
Right.
And so
they're adjusting and you're adjusting back. In a way.
That's the goal. And so
tug of war for the
yeah,
public.
Yeah. And so, sometimes it's not always just the dollars and cents. Again, a lot of it is, they just come out and just say no. So when you talk about, changing like the little, forgot the phrase for it, but the percentages as far as like, well, if we save, 1% on this and that. Lately, it's been just, hey, if we have 10 claims, we're just going to deny all 10. No matter what it looks like, we're just going to say no to everybody. And we're going to bet that 7 out of 10 probably say, well, I guess
I'm not getting a new roof.
I guess I'll wait till next time.
Yeah.
I'm in good hands. And so
it sounds like an insurance company I've heard of. So.
Yeah. Well, they're not that bad, but but that's
Not
kind of the
names.
that's kind of the motto is that, hey, we just say no to all of them, and the 3 that fight it, then hey, yeah, we know we're going to probably pay more than we should have had we just done it, but in the aggregate, it saves 70% on what they will be paying out. So in those instances, those 3 fight it. Usually, it either comes to me or somebody like me, and just kind of come back out. Hey, this is what we saw. Insurance. Yep. Why are you saying no to this? And so a lot of times, you should tell people you get one of 3 options after that. Either just say, yeah, hey, you caught us. Here you go. Either send somebody back out to look at it with me and kind of walk through it. Or the third one is they just still say no.
Still deny.
And so then, there's other routes after that. But
or you'll agree with the insurance because there's just
nothing there. Yeah. And then we figure that out.
Dodged the storm. Consider yourself lucky this time.
Yeah.
Your neighbor took all the damage.
Yeah, your roof was super steep, or your shingles were brand new still, and they just held up. And so, so it's. There's an edge to every storm. So sometimes, it might be your street, or it might be your corner of the street. You just happen to not get hit and
be lucky this time.
Yeah.
And so interesting. So don't get caught up in the everybody's getting a roof. I should. Rely on someone like yourself who's qualified to give you the truth.
Yeah. I mean, because again, a lot of the roofers they're good because at the same point, if you don't get paid, they don't get paid either. But, and sometimes they just throw some mud and see what sticks. And so that's but you don't always want to just, hey, if my neighbors filed one, I need to file it too.
You're wasting everybody's time.
You're wasting your time. And then 2, the other part is, sometimes, like your gutters and some of the vents, some of those things, like you sneeze on it hard enough, it'll dent. And so what'll happen is, you file that claim and, the insurance will see all the damage to those things. They'll account for it. But there might not be anything wrong with the shingles. And so they'll keep a record of that. So say, hey, you had, say, $3,000 worth of damage to the metal components. Your deductible is $4,000, so technically you're not getting anything. But then, say we get another storm, 6 months from now,
this is possible here in Texas.
Yeah, I mean, they say windstorm season. We had the storm last week.
Yeah,
and so, but they'll subtract that $3,000 from the next claim, and they just won't pay you for those things again. And so it's one of those things that if you're going to, had a lawyer tell me only ask questions the answers to.
Right.
So before you even file it, have somebody come look at it to figure out if it's even worth it, because it can kind of come back to bite you.
Right.
And
they keep records. Insurance companies keep
records. They are great at keeping records. I mean, even if it's like, 15, 20 years, like, hey,
even a phone call you made to them, they know that the interactions.
Yes. Yeah, they are very detail-oriented, which is kind of what you want, and I guess to someone to expect. Because, again, it's, again, there's bad apples on every side of it. And so if somebody does something they're not supposed to, then, you got to kind of keep tabs and keep it good. So
you enjoy what you do?
Yeah, I mean it's been great. I joke with people. I was like, I didn't think I'd get to a point where it's like, man, is it Friday already? It's like I need like a few more days, during the work week. Yeah, and it's weird. If 10, 15 years ago, say, hey, this is what I'd be doing. I was like, there's
no way.
There's no way.
Yeah.
I was going to be, the football and baseball coach my whole life, and that was going to be it. But yeah, if you told me I was going to be doing this 10 years ago, there's no possible way. But yeah, it's been fun. Meet new people all day, every day, and
help them.
Yeah, and help them. Yeah, get to be the light at the end of the tunnel. That's not a train, it's been good. And so,
well, I'm really glad you've been on the show with us. And again, it's a role I didn't know exists. Now I do. And now if I Google search you, I'll at least find the Caddo Convos.
You'll find this one. That might be it.
Listen to the show and go forward. Bryan, again, thanks for being on the show today. Really enjoyed hearing your thoughts and how you can help people and help us all sleep better at night.
That's the goal.
All right.
So
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today on the Caddo Convos podcast. A huge shout out to our incredible network of members for making our community vibrant and supportive. If you're looking to boost your productivity and reduce the isolation of working from home, consider joining us at Caddo Office Reimagined. Our spaces are designed to meet your evolving needs, support remote work, and foster a sense of community that's hard to find at home. Whether you're a startup aiming for growth, a freelancer seeking a professional setting, or a company looking to optimize resources, Caddo offers a perfect blend of flexibility and innovation. By joining us, you'll be a part of a dynamic business ecosystem that helps you thrive. For more information, visit caddooffices.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Caddo Convos.